All right, welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Horace, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. What's up with you?
It's good. I'm just glad, the warmer weather and stuff. And I'm just in a good mood. I'm just excited.
That is
pumped.
good.
Although,
That's
did
good.
you notice, apparently this week it snowed? Did it snow in your area this week?
We had, I don't know if it was snow, but like when it was raining, I think there was
wet
ice
snow.
or something.
Yeah,
like,
something. It was something. Winter making it last, come back.
Yeah.
Come back. All right, for this week's podcast, I thought we'd talk about insecurities. And the questions I had for today are as follows. Number 1, what are insecurities? Number 2, we'll ask each other, do you have insecurities? Number 3, how do you deal with your insecurities? And number 4, what's the best way to get over your insecurities? All right, so Horace, entrepreneurs, business people, people in their careers, we all have insecurities sometimes. There reaches a point in our life where we're sort of unsure about something. What are insecurities to you? What do they mean to you exactly?
So insecurities, being unsure of myself, I don't know. Like I think over time it's evolved. I don't know if I have any kind of deep-seated insecurities or anything.
Did you used to have any?
Growing up, yeah. Like I would say that at a younger age, when you're trying to figure things out, when you're trying to figure life out, you may be unsure about, like, oh my God, like how you look or how you dress or how you're like, there's a lot of things that you're questioning, which is natural for everyone. But I think at my age, I've pretty much come to terms with everything. It is what it is.
You're
right?
comfortable with who you are.
And I think there's things where you're like, like for example, I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
At a younger age, if there was something that like I didn't know, I think that would be a source of insecurity for myself. Whereas now, if I don't know something, it's more like, well, I can go and find out. It's not an insecurity. It's more of a let's get this done. Let me figure out an answer.
Right. So would you say that a lot of insecurities stem from the fact that sometimes life throws something at you? You just don't know how to cope with it or deal with it. Is that why?
Yeah. I guess it's the unknown. What about you?
I'd say that's exactly, it's very similar to me. I think when I was younger, and I think everybody goes through this in their life, you're very insecure about a lot of stuff. You're just deeply insecure about yourself.
Yeah.
And about you. You lack confidence. You're insecure with who you are. And you're always concerned by how you're perceived by other people, which is why you're always insecure. So that's something you sort of, become better to deal with as you grow up. Never goes away. Never goes away, right? You always have to deal with it. It's always something you have to deal with. Maybe you're just able to control it a bit better as you progress through life and your age.
Is it something that you don't take as personally then? You're like, making mistakes is a journey in life.
Correct.
And so you're just kind of like, you deal with it.
You deal with it,
You're used to it,
correct.
you expect it almost. You're not going to understand that thing the first time around.
Yep.
Right? Whereas when you're younger, you're like, man, why don't I understand this the first time I read it? I'm like, why am I forgetful? As you get older, you realize like you remember through repetition, and there's going to be things that you don't know, but it's not a matter of not knowing, like that you won't know. Once you figure it out, once you get exposed to it, it's something that you'll understand.
Yeah.
And you're just comfortable with it.
I'd say that. So we sort of covered what insecurities are. We also covered a bit of like, do you have any insecurities? I think we're both saying that all of us have insecurities, that it's perfectly normal to have them. I think the biggest lesson I want to impart to our listeners and viewers about insecurities is that my attitude, and I think maybe I am speaking for you too, the attitude towards insecurities as you grow older changes such that now I'm at a point in my career where I actually place myself purposely in situations where I'm insecure because I know that's how I will develop as a human being. It sounds a little bit crazy, and it is, but I feel like as you grow older, you realize that whatever it is that you're insecure with, that's a perfect opportunity for you to develop yourself as a human being. What do you think about that?
No, 100%, man. It's a playground for growth. I think when you're younger, you want to be in an area where like you're comfortable, and then when you don't know something, you're scared, you're insecure, you take it personally. But as you get older, you look back and you say every single time, like you were in an area in a situation that you didn't know. Yeah, it could be been stressful to understand things, but you always came out the other end. You always did. You always survived, and you always survived just a little bit better off than when you started. And so it's a huge just mechanism for growth. And then if you're especially of a growth mindset, you're searching for that growth, and you realize, okay, now I'm going to be in the darkness for a bit, right? And then I'm going to see the light. And that becomes a process. You expect it. So definitely something that like it progresses over time, where as you get older, definitely something that I'm like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what challenges me. Now that I know A and now that I know B, let me get to C, and let me then put them together. Let me figure out a way that I like something I didn't understand. You know what I mean? It's like it's a learning game. You're trying to see things in ways, in situations, in lights that you didn't see before. It's a very much staying open.
No, fantastic. I wanted to cover, some people are insecure. I'm sure you've come across them in your life. What's sort of one trait that you sometimes immediately notice when somebody's insecure?
Immediately insecure.
Yeah, like maybe you have a conversation with someone,
lack
or
of eye contact, like right away.
They don't look at you. Okay.
Yeah, like if there's or like they're shifting or looking down or something like that. Like when somebody's or their body language is like not as stiff. I don't know. I'm giving you a lot of answers. The one thing I would say is the eye contact. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think there are two types of insecurities in people. There's the one you're saying, which is usually someone who's shy, etc. Whenever I meet someone like that, I think what I try to do is actually go out of my way to make them feel comfortable, because sometimes people just need a little bit of validation, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes I've needed that too in my life. I've been knocked a few times and punched in the face when I've needed that, but that's okay. It's a learning process. So sometimes I go out of my way to make people feel comfortable. I understand it's perfectly normal. I think there is another type of insecurity, though, which does happen when you meet someone where they're completely overcompensating for it.
Oh.
They're completely being like, overconfident, or, not overconfident, but I would say like arrogant.
Yeah.
Right?
And really, they're not arrogant. They're just trying to cover up any objections. Like, they don't want objections. So they're just coming out so strong. So everyone's kind of saying...
They're overcompensating for it.
Yeah, it's a big, like, beware of dog sign type of thing. There's going to be a lot of barking if you say anything. No, definitely. I find that... I also find that, like, for example, what you just said, where, like, if you have somebody who's, like, not maybe the most confident and you're trying to make them more comfortable, I find that people who are growth-oriented will always try to make the other party comfortable. Yeah. For several different reasons. A, they recognize what they're doing. B, I find if I'm doing that, I want them to be comfortable so that I can, because even if they're not confident, doesn't mean that they don't know something. They're just not confident, right? Yeah. So, and there might be, may have something that I don't have, and I got to figure out, what piece of information they have that I could use, right? That could grow me as a person. And so you have to make them comfortable so that they can reveal that.
It's so true. So like you're having that interaction with someone with empathy, as opposed to being that type of person where like you shut them down just because they act a certain way. Yeah. I think in life in general, if people are given the chance to express themselves, to make themselves feel comfortable, you'd be surprised by the contribution they're able to make. And you can make a difference in their lives by making them feel a bit more comfortable around you.
Yeah. No, because everybody's got like their own experiences
in life. People come from different places, etc., different experience.
And so with that background, you're trying to figure out, you're tapping into that. And I feel like, you definitely want. And one of the things that I find that the people who, when they smell that insecurity and they take advantage of that, it's only because they're insecure with themselves. And they feel like that other person shouldn't be insecure, or this is a weakness that I can take advantage of. And it has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with the person who's trying to take advantage of somebody in that situation. So that's something, because in general, I want, like kind of going back to what you said. Yeah. If I spend too long being comfortable, I get scared. Really? Because I'm like, if I'm here too long, I'm going to get stale. Like, I'm going to get used to just like,
being
just
comfortable,
chilling out and not doing anything, and that push, like mentally, it keeps you, I guess, like if you don't like practice your skill, you're gonna lose it. It's the same thing with like just if you're spending too much time being comfortable, I feel like the mental side of it, you're gonna lose that sharpness of mind. Yeah. Because when you're a new mind, right? When you're learning something new, you're aware of everything. You know, you're functioning at a very different level. Then when you get used to something, right, you're getting rid of the noise and you're only focusing on a few things because you've seen it and whatever. And that's good, but it's also bad because you're not as sharp. You're not using everything that you have to understand a situation. So when you go into another new situation, again, you're aware, you're like sensing everything at every moment to really kind of understand or get to a good understanding of whatever it is that you're trying to understand. Would you agree, or is that something, is your experience a bit different?
No, I agree. I agree with everything you just said.
I don't know. I was like, maybe I'm only in my own head, man.
No, I agree. It makes sense. It's roughly in line with how I do it too. I did want to spend a bit more time, though, of this podcast on coping strategies with insecurities, what's helped you get over your insecurities and that type of thing. Because a lot of people sometimes going through life, they feel like they have a bit of imposter syndrome, right? They're being like fake, etc., all this sort of stuff. How do you cope and get over those insecurities? And maybe you could give a few tips of what's helped you just through your career or your business, etc. Maybe let's frame it in a couple of ways. So let's talk about just personal life as a start. What's some mechanisms you've used to like get over insecurities that you've had personally? Just personally speaking.
I mean, personally, I guess it's just putting myself in those situations more often.
Yeah.
Right.
Because let's be honest, like I'll go back to my own life.
Yeah.
Okay. A few years ago, I was very concerned about how people would perceive me, like just externally, how would they see me, the image I portrayed of myself, all that sort of stuff. And it's funny when you're going through this stuff, a lot of people don't know, but you're going through it, you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something mental or something, you know, it wasn't mental health related or anything like that. It was just, I was really concerned about the way.
Reflecting.
Yes. I was just really concerned about the way people would perceived me. And I think one way I sort of did to overcompensate for it or something like that was I thought I always had to dress well and, you know, have nice clothes and stuff like that. So that was like my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, because I dress like this, people will see me a certain way. Or
I think everybody's gone through those phases. I think if you're normal, right, I think everybody at one point in their life, right, has gone through that kind of phase where like they are not necessarily like at the end of the day, we're social creatures. Humanity
we're humans,
is so there is a level of acceptance that you require within your community. If you don't have that, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like, I think there's like, in the beginning, you might dress a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I think, in terms of like the imposter syndrome, I think that like in those kind of situations, right, at least for myself, I would only stop if I was doing that to try to trick somebody or swindle somebody or to deceive somebody.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, at least, I don't know if it's a good justification or not. If I feel like, you know, I'm doing this as a learning curve.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm doing this for myself, it is for other people, but at the same time, it is for yourself to, you know, be confident, be whatever. I would say that kind of justifies it a little bit. No?
Yeah, I guess so. But however you want to justify it. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think for me too, like, I mean, it wasn't a bad thing what I was doing. It wasn't hurting somebody else or whatever. But it was something at the time when I was going through it, I didn't realize because I was just dealing with it. And now I sort of recognize for what it was.
Because a lot of it is self-exploration, right? Like if you really want to understand who you are as a person, you're going to start understanding yourself in the beginning in the context of what's out there.
Yeah.
And you're going to naturally kind of experiment with that interaction, right? And then as you kind of develop an understanding of who you are, you're more able to kind of wear, not like physically wear, but wear who you are more confidently.
Yeah.
Be who you are more confidently.
Right. Okay, so we've covered, I think, the personal bit.
Yeah.
So how about in business? Let's say, are there any situations where you're sometimes insecure in business?
Dude, I feel like business is like the easiest to be...
Insecure?
Like, not like the easiest to get over.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like, okay.
I think what you're saying, once you've started your business and you've had some success, it's pretty easy. But how about in the beginning?
I mean, in the beginning, you would, the insecurities that you'll have in business is always linked to the self.
Right.
You get what I mean? Like, am I good enough? It's not, is the business good enough? right? I feel like with business, like what's the worst what's gonna happen? I'm gonna lose money. I feel like when people are more afraid of someone else, right, not liking something they did, than them losing money. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'll feel more hurt, which is, I guess that's good because you put less value on money, right? And more value on you as a person, which it should.
Yeah.
Right. But with money, I feel with business, I feel like the insecurities, it was like an other. Once I started treating the business as an other, I realized, okay, I'm just solving problems and that's it in the business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I did was, for example, when the beginning, when I started the business and I'm dealing with every client, I did take every single, pushback very personally.
Right. Okay. So that's a good one. Yeah.
So I took it very personally, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like they think what I did was so bad." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I should have known, and this and that. And I don't know. As you grow, I don't know if it's maturity, whatever. And I've got like employees dealing with the clients. If an issue arises, I know for a fact that my guys are well trained. People working for me are like kind of treating them fine. If there's an issue, I will ask them what's going on, but sometimes and I'll try to figure out, was there a miscommunication between what the client understood and what the firm was offering, right? So maybe it's a misunderstanding of expectations. So we should get our expectations in line with any of our service offerings. What was it? Was it an outside influence that made him feel a certain way? Like, so it's a very different kind of perspective as opposed to when it was straight at me and I'm like, oh my God, they don't like me.
Yeah.
So, and it's natural, man. It's like, I feel like if that's not happening, there's something wrong. There's something like it's not, you're not empathizing, right?
Right. And as you said that, I was thinking one of the things you become more comfortable with is, as a business owner and as an adult, is you're not going to win them all. You're not going to win them all. There are some people in the world you just can't win over. They're just going to hate you. They just don't like the way you look.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Dude,
you're not going to, not everybody's going to like you, and you got to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some rich people. Let's be honest. Let's take rich people, okay? They're considered like very successful. I'm sure there are people out there that hate them for whatever reason, but they have an axe to grind, or they have something that they hate. It makes them hate that person. And that's okay. You're not going to win them all.
Yeah. I think that's like more maturity, man. I think when you're younger, when you're in high school, when you're in undergrad, even when you're starting off your career, you want everybody to like you.
Right.
You want as many friends as you possibly can.
Yeah.
I remember, like, at least during our undergrad times, when Facebook came out. That dates us, but there's a lot of people who are just like, like, oh my God, I get my friend count up.
Yeah.
Right? That was the mindset.
That was the mindset.
Yeah. Well, now it's like my mindset's completely different. I don't think I was ever in that kind of game, but if I was not then, I'm definitely not now. Like I was never further away from that mindset as well, because you need a few strong relationships to really make yourself grow. And like you said, not everybody's gonna like you, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with them, right?
No,
because a lot of times, people will they tend to gravitate towards similarities, and you can't be everything to everyone, right? Which is fine. But at the same time, I should inculcate in myself an open kind of mindset where I'm willing to talk to people and understand where they're coming from and do all of that, and just to gain insight, right? Knowing that not everybody else is going to want that, which is fine. And even with myself, like over the years, I personally think I don't hang out with the same people. Like my close people are not the same. Just because as you get older, you're in life, what you want changes, what the kind of people you want around you changes, right? And naturally you're kind of working with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. Very, very true. Very true. I guess one of the things you sort of learn about insecurities is in life in general, and it's a key lesson. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in general, right? And that's what insecurities are all about. You got to learn to be comfortable by being uncomfortable. Because like we both said, insecurities and things you're afraid to do are exactly an indication of what the next thing is that you should do, because that's where growth lies. Growth doesn't lie in doing the same thing over and over again just because it's easy or just because you know it. Growth is where it's hard, where it's uncomfortable, where you're like, oh, I don't like this situation. You should put yourself there because that's where you're going to grow and learn new things and develop if you have that kind of mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I would honestly always want people, like, it's something that now more than ever you need to have a growth mindset.
You really do.
Because as bad as it sounds, right, our economy changes so quickly.
With technology.
You're going to be out of a job. Then what are you going to do? You got to learn. You know what I mean? You got to be able to revamp your skill set and move and pivot to whatever you need there is, right? If you go back like 100 years ago, right? Okay, the economy didn't pivot as quickly. You could actually start from working at the same company and end there as well without ever having an issue, right? And without necessarily learning anything that's drastically different from the time you started. But now I feel like within like a month or two, you're learning different things because there's constant like just inflow of new ideas, new things to figure out. The business, not only are there pressures outside, but internally for it to become more efficient, more effective, more able to grow, you have to have a workforce that is open-minded, if not to creating new solutions, but to accepting new solutions.
Yeah.
At the very minimum. So you have to have an open mindset.
It's so true. You know, as you were saying that, I was thinking both of our businesses. You work in the legal field, I in the accounting field. One of the things that you learn to be very comfortable with, especially as a professional, right, because we both provide professional services, is that sometimes you don't always have all the answers. I'll give you an example. You come and you ask about a tax question that I've never dealt with, and I'm a tax professional. I have a CPA. For God's sakes, I've written the UFE when it was called the UFE, right? Like, you're supposed to know the entire tax act. If the tax act, by the way, is an enormous book, and laws change all the time. It is impossible for me to know every single rule that is in that book. So if a client comes and asks me a tax question that I've never really dealt with, I likely don't know the answer. And I can't rely on the fact that, I'm a CPA, I'm supposed to know everything, I should just spew out some sort of an answer. No, sometimes you don't know. Yeah. You got to be comfortable with that level of insecurity that sometimes even in a field where you're considered the expert, you don't have all the answers. But you know what's key? It's having that growth mindset where you're like, you know what? I don't know this. Here's an opportunity for me to learn about it and get better at it and improve.
Yeah, but the other thing is also difference between like a mature kind of mindset is that like, and somebody who's just kind of starting off, you're trained not to memorize the tax act, but you're trained to interpret it when you need to look into it.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why you wrote the UFE. You didn't write it to memorize everything. No. Your brain cells were used for something else. So when somebody comes to you, they can read the same thing, but they're not going to really understand it to like the same depth and meaning as somebody like you who's been trained to read it, you know? And people kind of overlook that. They don't see that. So they feel like when they're starting off, I'm being paid to memorize everything and have all the answers.
And I should know everything.
No. When you're being paid to have been trained a certain way to go figure it out.
Yeah, so true. Agreed. 100%. 100%. Are there sometimes, situations in your life that have come about, understood that now you're very comfortable with being insecure, some of these uncomfortable situations? I'm sure this happens to me from time to time as well. Something happens in your business and your life, and it sort of rattles you. Do you know what I mean? It sort of brings you back to that whole like imposter syndrome, insecure type stuff. Does that happen sometimes? How do you cope with those situations?
I think the biggest thing I sometimes have is like, okay, well, what if I take a risk so big that everything kind of goes down, right?
It's pretty dire.
Yeah. So like, it's like that happens, right? And then like, because if it goes down, there's significant amount of employees that are working with us, and like, I feel like a little stressed that like their lives depend on this stuff too. So it's not just like when I'm making a decision, it's not just me trying to grow something or having some fun.
Yeah,
there's a lot of other people, stakeholders involved, right? And the most immediate ones that I see are the ones that are working at the firm, and whenever I have that thought, I also then I'm like, I just have a conversation with myself. It's an internal dialogue, basically stating that there's always a way out. Whether this is reasonable or not, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? If I look at my past experiences, right? Whenever there's an issue, there's no impossible issue. There's always something that could be resolved. There's always something that you could figure out. You have to have the growth mindset. You have to be open. You have to constantly be looking for solutions. And if you think you're going to fail, you probably will, because it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're not going to go into the action as confidently as you would, or as decisively as you would, if you're thinking of like, you know what, I'm really taking this and I'm going to own it, as opposed to you're constantly looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So for me, like now, like the biggest things where I kind of panic, if there is a big decision, are we going the right way? Is the company growing? Because I want, like, even in terms of the growth of the company, I want it to grow so that like the people that I'm working with, they have something to grow into. I have something to grow into. So it's not just financial. Again, it's a growth. And if you're at like, leading an organization, you have to have that growth thing so that everybody grows with you.
Yeah.
And so for that, there's a lot of other factors, like when you're first starting off, it's like the decisions are small, they're micro, the effects like are not as big as you get like bigger, the effects of that every decision are just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, true. So let's do our takeaways on insecurity. Maybe I'll go first. One of the things I do want to impart to our audience and our listeners is this. Insecurities never go away. You listen to some of the interviews you and I have recently done with some of the entrepreneurs that we've had on the show. All of them have said they have insecurities. There's stuff that they're uncertain about all the time, right? If you're expecting to jump into a business, a new career, or new opportunity, what have you, if you think that will be like risk-free and you won't feel insecure and have a lack of confidence in that opportunity, you're kidding yourself. That situation never arises. Life is always up and down. It's always mixed with emotions. You always feel insecure or feel like you're an imposter somewhere. But you sort of learn that it is out of those hard moments where you really grow and develop as an individual.
It's not a matter of, am I going to fall down? It's a matter of when I'm going to fall down, right? And I just got to get back up.
I like that a lot.
And you're not looking over like, oh, when is the next time I'm going to fall down? When you go fall down, when you fall down, it's going to happen. And then you just it's like riding a bike, man. If you're scared of falling down, you'd never you'd never initiate it. If you got scared the first time you fell down, you'd never learn how to ride a bike.
Yeah. Dude, that's so true. It's like learning a new skill set, right? You go skiing, you go swimming the first time. Listen, you're going to suck, and that's okay, but you got to suck first to become good.
Yeah, and every single, dude, when at a very like basics level, even reading and writing, like how did we understand? You start with A is for apple, like
you make mistakes as a kid, as a baby, and then you go from there.
And then when you string it together, and if you do it really well and you can articulate yourself, that's an amazing thing. Like being well written, for me, I think anybody who's well written, well spoken, I admire those type of individuals, but they all started from like the same position as everybody else. You come out and you don't know how to talk.
So true. Yeah, so remember that insecurities are where the growth and development lies.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll leave it there. See you on the next episode.
Take care, guys.
Take care.